We're on site right here in Loveland, Colorado with Root Shoot Malting, and we're going to take a tour of their awesome facility they have here. So Todd, tell us where to get started.
Walk you through the whole process here. So these grain bins are 20,000 bushels, which is about 1 million pounds. And then these other ones are about 14,000 bushels and 5,000 bushels here. So at harvest, we bring majority of our barley harvest just like directly into these grain bins. These 3 bins are the majority of our needs for the year. So we can malt about 3 million pounds. And that's about what these bins will hold.
Do each one of these bins have a dedicated grain that you guys are doing?
Not typically. Usually it's just the Genie barley. So that's what we've been growing more specifically for the last like 4 years now. So that's the main focus. And then we have some smaller bins that are off-site that will kind of hold some of the experimental varieties that we're working with.
Sure.
So
you guys do malt corn too, right? You mentioned.
We do, yeah. But we store all the corn off-site as well. So only thing that comes through here is barley, wheat, and rye. We want to keep it out of the
segregated.
Yeah, segregated, mostly from all of these other small grains.
You basically use these cone bottom bins for cleaning, so you're kind of alternating between each one of these. So if you want, barley that's going into one bin to be cleaned, then you kind of run it through the loops to move it to the other bin, and then you just kind of cycle through that.
Yeah, and then from there we bring it into one of these 6 bins, and each one of these bins is basically a batch, about 20,000 pounds worth.
So who gets the privilege of
going up to that
auger up there?
That's a flip of a coin.
The International Space Station?
Yeah.
Don't you call it?
Yeah. From one of these 6 bins is what we pull out that goes into the steep tank. When it comes in to the malt house, it comes through this like flex tube auger, and it goes in. Yeah, there's some grain actually in this. So it runs through this dump scale. So this is how we measure how much is going to be put into the steep tank. So I think it's like 800 dumps or something, which equals about 20,000 pounds. Each dump is about 24 pounds. So it hasn't been hydrated at all, so no rootlet growth or anything like that.
It's amazing how small it looks compared to after it was germinating, right?
Yeah, it definitely swells up quite a bit during, you're taking it from 11% moisture all the way up to 40%, so you gotta pack that moisture into it and it swells up quite a bit, so.
Yep. Well, hold on, Todd, what is this for?
Birds or squirrels. So.
Really?
Yeah, it's just a little pellet gun.
That's funny.
Yeah, mostly squirrels actually. So
squirrels?
Yeah, we don't like squirrels.
Tell us what's going on starting here, right?
So we fill in 20,000 pounds into this tank, and then whenever we're ready to start steeping, then we'll add water. There's a big water tank that's in the back there that's elevated. And that can hold about 5,000 gallons. We use about half of that each time we steep, so about like 2,500 gallons per steep. We can also control the temperature inside that tank. So in the winter, when the water's coming in that's really cold, we need to bring that up to like right around 60 degrees to make sure that we don't like shock the barley. So
one of the coolest things too that I don't think you've touched on is that all of the water from our malting process, whether it be the steep tank or any of the water that you introduce in the germination drums, that excess water is then land applied. So we've got the 85 acres that's back here, and so any of the water we try to recycle, and so you can land apply it and water whatever's growing back there. So
any of the water you're draining from the steep tank goes straight out to irrigate the fields.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so we do about 8 hours underwater. There's a fan there that we're actually blowing air up into it to just homogenize all the grain and introduce maybe a little bit of oxygen, but that's not really the whole purpose. It's mostly just to mix it up really well.
Sure.
Then we drain the water off after that 8 hours, and it sits in there and it does a dry steep. So basically you're just getting the grain ready to absorb moisture again, and we pump it into one of these 3 drums. During the whole germination process, we're trying to maintain around 60 degrees or less. And we can add water. So we really want to get up to about like 45% moisture, like total. So like there's a layer of spray balls that you can actually spray water while it's rotating.
Like misters?
It's more than just a mister, but it's like a decent amount of water.
Okay.
And we can spray that on while it's rotating to mix it in really well. And we'll bring the moisture content up to like 45%. Steeping is like the most important piece of malting. Is really trying to get that right and make sure that your barley variety is getting that right moisture content and then not being underwater for too long.
And you're really trying to fool the biological process that are like in the DNA of the grain at that stage, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you can't You can't fake the grain out too much, right? Like there's limitations there, right?
Different temperatures is going to be the main factor on like really trying to coax it in. So if it is hitting like maybe a little bit of warmer water during the winter months, that'll help like invigorate that barley and get it growing a little bit more quickly than if you were bringing in like colder water during the summer.
How many pounds of barley typically go into a single batch of whiskey?
It's about 1,000 pounds per barrel.
1,000 pounds per barrel?
Yeah, just
Okay.
average.
Okay.
Depending on either grain, like any type of grain, it's about 1,000 pounds.
1,000 pounds. And the smell coming off the grain here is very different than what I smelled from your raw material out there, right?
For sure.
And now it smells more akin to what you smell in distillery or brewery, right?
Yeah.
But still has a lot more like higher organic notes to it, so
Yeah.
it's not quite that rich.
Yeah. You want it to smell like cucumbers.
Would there ever be a need for you to crawl in there?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Somebody in there every week.
What are they doing?
Cleaning.
Okay, but I mean, that's just empty, not full of grain, right?
Yeah. No, we're never in there when it's full of grains.
So here's the root shoot.
Yeah, exactly. The roots are shooting right there. So what we're monitoring mostly the acrospire growth.
The what?
That's acrospire. So that's
Okay.
what's actually underneath
Okay.
the skin. That'll become the plant if you were to let it continue
Sure.
to grow. So we're trying to get this to about the same length as the kernel.
Okay.
It gives us a good indication of modification of the malt. And so once it reaches that stage, then that's when we go to kiln.
And that's where all the starches and stuff that you mentioned earlier.
I mean, it's using some of that starch and energy that was in the
But this white part is
white fiber is the starch.
okay. That's all the stuff that begins to, the enzymes begin to break down into simple sugars that then the yeast can consume to make your fermented product, whatever it's beer or distilled whiskey, right?
So
Okay.
we're basically
Holy
breaking
smokes.
that starch down. Yeah, so that's another test is like how easy does it smear? They call it the maltster's thumb.
The chalkier the better.
Yep.
Interesting.
That means you really modified it well. So this is, I mean, this just started kilning today, so we've got at least 36 hours before that drum finishes, and then we start killing this.
So how far is this one in the process then?
I
I think you said earlier, but
about 4 days. of
Okay.
germination. So it needs another day and a half or so.
all right. So this auger
Yep.
releases the grain from
Which
inside.
runs the whole thing. So it rotates down with that big chain and dumps into this trough. And then there's a slide gate down there we open up, and then there's a chain that will take it away. And it goes up and over and then into the other side of the building.
So then once it's in those grain bins, how long does it stay there before you guys bag it and pallet it?
It depends, but no longer than like three days probably.
Okay.
So within the week, it's being packaged. And then majority of it's going in 50-pound bags, but there's also some people that take super sacks or those bulk bags, which are 2,000 pounds.
Cool. Where do we go from here?
Through the door, and we'll check out packaging.
All right. The grain is kilned, and it comes in through.
It drops into one of these 4 bins here, and these are all just finished malt bins. It spends, I don't know, maybe 3 days sitting in there. You're supposed to like cure malt for a period of time. That's just basically like equalizing its moisture content. So you really want it to sit in there for about 3 days before you actually start packaging it.
Okay.
And then from there, it runs out of the bottom and then up into this chain disc, and then this is our malt cleaner.
And this is basically sifting out stuff that you don't want to have in your final product, correct?
Yep, which is primarily just rootlets. Like otherwise, everything else that's already been kind
already
of
been
cleaned
processed
out
out,
and
yeah.
processed out. Yeah. So it goes through this cleaner and then goes up, and we use this big hopper up here and package it into 50-pound bags for the most part.
How many pounds are you running through each batch then? Is it the full 20,000 pounds?
Yeah, so you actually have about a loss of 12 to 15%. A lot of that has to do with moisture content. Comes in at 10, you go all the way up to 45, and then it gets kilned down to about like 4%. So
you're
you've got like
you're filling
6%.
You might correct me with my math, but you're 350 bags?
8.5 pallet. 8.5 pallets per.
How many did you say? 40 bags?
Yep.
So 40 times 8?
It's too much math.
Yeah.
4 drinks.
Oh, that's 3.
So you were right.
Yeah, 50. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There you go. You're right on.
Sweet.
Right
Marketing
on.
guy pulling through on the math here, right? There you go.
Yep.
And then these sit on your shelves for no more than
6 months typically. Just depends on like
Depends on the type
how
of malt.
how special it is, like, and how much like of the malt is going to be used in a certain batch. Like sometimes there's only 50 pounds that's used in a batch of malt.
A lot of our base malt is, you know, it's a 80% of the beer spirit.
It's
or
really
whatever
your
you said. So
volume,
you're
really,
thinking through that pretty
from a
quickly.
volume perspective. Your volume really comes from the beer side.
A lot of it does, yeah. Unless people are making single malt, but there's not really that many people making single malt whiskey.
And even then, I mean, you're getting like a lot more goes further in distilling single malts than it does brewing, right? Am I correct?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
You got to like convert barrels of beer to barrels of whiskey. So like 1,000 pounds of malt will make 10 barrels of beer.
Okay.
1,000 pounds of malt will make 1 barrel of whiskey.
Which, I mean, it does make sense, right? Because you're, you know, from the distilling process, right? You're taking that
Taking a lot of
beer
liquid out
wash,
of it.
right?
Yeah.
You're actually distilling it, and you're getting a lot less yield out of that. So
Yep.
that makes sense, right? Really, the craft brewing industry here in Colorado really outsizes the distilling industry, probably 10 to 1, right? At least.
Oh, for sure.
You know, so
Mhm.
you're really moving a lot more for the brewing side than you are distilling side. So
People should make more single malt whiskey though.
I totally agree. You hear that? You heard that from him, right? More single malt whiskey.
More single malt whiskey. It's the
Yeah.
best type of whiskey out there.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for this awesome tour. It's awesome to see how you guys are promoting local farming and really extending that to terroir and whiskey and stuff, which is great. But thank you for your time. Visit their website to find their retail locations, and if you're out of state, email us. We'll find a way to reach you guys, or we'll let you know just simply when they're ready to ship out of state, which hopefully
Could
by
be
the time
sooner than
this-
later.
Yeah,
we'll
hopefully
see.
sooner than later, right? So,
Yep.
cheers, guys.